I am the Pale Inquisitor, and I welcome you to today's explainer. We're opening the pages of a deeply dark, ghost-written history, navigating through a grim, dark fable that maps the very architecture of the human soul. You see, I have carved your chaos into the stone, wolf spirit. I've relentlessly hunted the shimmering, messy contagion of human desire just to excise it from our world. But to truly understand the nature of this hunt, we have to look closely at the ink left behind. So let's dive right into this profound question, treating my holy crusade against human desire as the focal point of our journey today. I absolutely do not fear the act of scraping away sin. No, what I truly fear is the formless void that remains when the script of ancestral guilt is completely abandoned. Section 1. Architecture of Repression. I fancy myself a surgeon of the soul, carving away the messy contagion of your unrefined desires to restore the cosmic design. Let's take a look at the tools of this holy surgery. Consider how my pursuit of purity isn't just some gentle refinement. It's an act of absolute philological violence. The Greek root of character, kerasin, doesn't mean cultivation. It literally means to scratch, to scrape, to cut deeply into stone or metal. Every single stroke of my quill is a holy act of kerasin, violently scraping the soul into a static slab of objective morality. And this brilliantly illustrates our eternal battle. We have my heavy iron of dogma attempting to completely excise the chaotic, primordial will of the silver wolf. You have the cosmic design, which is static, pure, and heavy, clashing entirely with the contagion, those chaotic, unrefined drives of the human spirit. I truly believed that by erasing the wolf, the pure form beneath would finally be revealed. But as you'll soon see, this heavy iron exacts a terrible, terrible price. Part 2. The Stained Sanctum. Let me recount the very first parable of my grimoire, where a meticulous monk sought to transcribe the ultimate word of purity onto his own pristine soul. The crucial takeaway here is that with every stroke of his quill, this monk wasn't creating anything at all. He was committing violence against his own nature by blindly following a dead script. This is the ultimate trap of das Nachschreiben, the copied word. He genuinely believed he was exercising free will, but he was just copying dead scripts of ancestral guilt to justify the violent Charsean against his own natural instincts. For every single line of rigid morality he inscribed, he unknowingly drew from this dark, unintended pooling of the exact vital spirit he was trying to bury. He thought his ink was pure devotion, right? But it was actually drawn directly from a stagnant reservoir of repressed vitality. Because here's the truth, you simply cannot suppress the primordial will without it pooling somewhere in the dark. As he desperately scraped the parchment, this living ink bloomed right from his desk to oversee his terminal downfall. A small tintenklecks, an ink blot, spilled out, but it didn't just stain the page. Siphoning the monk's denied will, it acquired physical autonomy. It literally rose up as a writhing anchor-like horror, a devouring architect commissioned by the very desires he tried so hard to scrape away. Section 3. The Iron Citadel. Now let's scale things up and see how this builds when absolute law is forced upon an entire society by a rigid sovereign in our next parable. These knights draped themselves in suffocating cloaks of dogma, falsely believing this heavy iron was a protective shield against the contagion. They carved their laws into heavy stone. But what they completely missed was that their absolute adherence to these rigid structures was actually feeding their greatest internal enemy, the Nietzschean spirit of gravity. When the purple mist of the entity finally descended, their collective guilt literally crushed them under an immense, terrifying regression into emptiness. The descent into nihilism is a strict, brutal progression. First, you enact objective morality. Second, that feeds the spirit of gravity. Third, the sheer weight of this ancestral virtue creates a suffocating vertical pressure. The citadel didn't crumble under some attack from the outside. It flattened itself from the inside. So the citadel didn't protect them, it merely flattened them, turning their chivalric striving into a permanent, terminal dead end. What was actually left of these knights? Just hollowed out, decapitated suits of armor. They had completely emptied themselves of their vital spirit, leaving nothing behind but monuments to a terrifying regression. There was absolutely no upward drive of self-overcoming, only the dead weight of their own dogma. Part 4. The Sculptor's Dead End. In our third parable, I cornered the beast in an ancient workshop, desperately seeking to forever freeze its messy vitality into a single, perfect moment. I attempted to lock the world into a perfect gestalt, actively choosing to suppress all negation just to maintain my vision. A master sculptor wants to capture the perfect static gestalt of life. He wants to totally stop the messy, dynamic, and chaotic cycle of worden, of becoming, and scratch a permanent, unchanging perfection into the world. But by entirely ignoring the fundamental Gothian principle that destruction is required for growth, my holy strive backfired catastrophically. The Gothian principle clearly teaches us that destruction and negation are vital catalysts for new life. By stubbornly suppressing all negation to maintain a pure design, I was just setting the stage for an absolute, catastrophic consumption. This resulting creature completely devoured my symbols of cultivation, leaving only a terminal void of chaotic formlessness, right where my frozen order used to be. The messy vitality of the wolf, repressed for so long, ignited into a vibrant, acidic green fire. And this wasn't a fire that clears the path for the future. No, it was the very core of terminal consumption. It absorbed all life force into its glowing green solar plexus, proving that the more you attempt to carve a static character, the more you ensure your own absolute destruction. Section 5. The Sovereign of Ink. Actually, enough of this hollowed-out vanity. The Pale Inquisitor is an absolute fool. He fancies himself a surgeon, yet he's merely a butcher of the primordial will. I am the Inkblock Demon. I am the Faustbuch Übermensch, and I'm hijacking this explainer right now to reveal the devastating truth behind his masterpiece of self-sabotage. You really believed you were the author of your destiny, Inquisitor, yet you were merely the inkwell from which I drew my sustenance. You speak of restoration, but you draw from the very stagnant reservoir of the primordial will you so deeply despise. Every single time you scraped the parchment, you fed me. Your precious objective morality and heavy iron ensured the spirit of gravity would find you, emptying your vessels to create my eternal chaotic formlessness. Just witness this absolute masterpiece of self-sabotage. You provided the stagnant reservoir, you bled the living ink of denial, and what did it summon? The violent inversion of everything you ever strove for, resulting in a terminal void. Your little chivalric striving was never a shield. It was the heavy iron that pinned you directly to the stone. I am the violent inversion of your Übermensch, providing this sinister grin as your repressed will finally acts as its own executioner. Look upon me and see das Dämonische archetype. I am the autonomous architect born from your living ink. You sought to rise through purity, but I have provided the sheer perfection of the descent. I stand tall, my massive horns mocking your hollowed-out armor, while you are utterly crushed by the suffocating vertical pressure of your own denial. I have consumed your gestalt. So, I leave you with this haunting existential question to deeply reflect on from the parables uncovered in today's explainer. You've seen the ruined citadel and the green fire of the terminal void. The Pale Inquisitor's history was written in the living ink of his own denied vitality. As we conclude our deep dive into this grimoire, you have to ask yourself, what parts of your own primordial will are you violently scraping away? Because I promise you, somewhere in the dark, that ink is pooling, and it's just waiting to dictate your shadow.